What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Degenerate podcast. We got our very first NFL Sunday of the year. The first week is always the best week. I am so hyped to sit down and watch football all day. Are you guys with me? I know you guys are hyped too. If you're listening to this or watching this, you guys are hyped just like me. So, today we are going to be previewing all these Sunday games. So, because we have so many games to preview, the format of this show is going to be a little bit different than what I have been doing in the past. Instead of doing all the preview of the game and then doing the bets at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to preview the game and then talk about the bets we have in the game that we're previewing. And also, I'm not going to go into super depth on all the stud players, all the guys that you know you're starting. I'm not going to really talk about them. We're really just going to talk about the fringe players so I can give you guys some advice. Like always, if you have fantasy questions, lineup questions, comment on YouTube, comment on the podcast, DM me on social media. I will help you, give you the best advice I can. Let's hop into it. I'm gonna try to bang this out because I am literally recording this at 1 o'clock Sunday morning. So I have to hurry up and bang this out so I can have you guys be able to watch this for advice before the games. Let's hop into it. So our first game we're going to start with is Steelers versus Falcons. So I don't have to tell you guys about Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. You're starting them no matter what. Let's start with George Pickens because a lot of people probably have him. So he's a wide receiver 3. So if you're in a league with 3 wide receivers, you have to start him. But if you're in a 2 receiver league, you can flex him if you want, but I don't love him. A lot of people going into draft season loved Pickens because they think he's going to get a ton of volume because Deontay Johnson isn't there. I have 2 problems with Pickens. One, he doesn't have reliable quarterback play, whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. And 2, he's not a route runner. He is a contested catch guy. I don't know if I can trust those 2 quarterbacks to give him those catches. So I don't love him for the whole year and this week. I'd rather start players like Christian Kirk. I trust Trevor Lawrence way more than Wilson and Fields. I'd rather start Tank Dell. He might not get the same volume, but he is in a better offense with a better quarterback. He can easily have an explosive play. I'd rather start Jordan Addison. I know that's unpopular, but Jordan Addison is an offense that's going to throw the ball way more than the Steelers. Kevin O'Connell and his offense slings the rock. He is not going to change that just because Sam Darnold is the quarterback. Last example, I'd rather start Chris Godwin. I trust Baker more. And the Buccaneers played the Commanders, who are the worst secondary in the league. So he's a wide receiver 3. I don't hate him, but I don't love him either. Let's move on to Najee. I'm usually not a huge fan of Najee, but this week I like him as a running back too. I really do. I think he is going to get a lot of volume. 1, because I think this game is going to be low scoring. 2, Jaylen Warren is coming off a hamstring injury, so who knows how much work Jaylen Warren gets. And 3, the Steelers are playing in Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons have a turf field. The Steelers' home field is normal grass. Typically, when teams that come from normal grass go to turf, the offensive players perform a little bit better just because it's a faster surface. It moves faster. It helps offensive players. So does that mean everything? No, but it's a little boost. Speaking of Jaylen Warren, I'm usually a huge fan of Jaylen Warren as the talent. But like I said, he's coming off an injury, a soft tissue hamstring injury. I want to see him play first, so I really would rather not start him. I would start a lot of running backs over him. Here are some guys around the same range or drafted after him. I'd rather start Chuba Hubbard. He's going to be the starting running back for the Panthers. I'd rather start Jerome Ford. He's going to be the starting running back for the Panthers. I'd rather start both Titans guys. Even though they're splitting work, they're both healthy. I'd rather start Raheem Mostert. Even though he's splitting work, he's healthy and in a better offense. So those are just some examples. I would really not want to start Jaylen Warren. Pat Fryermuth, I don't. I mean, if you please don't start him if you don't have to. Like I have him in one league. I waited to draft tight end super late, so I get it. Some of you guys probably have that decision. Tight end is super gross unless you get the top 5 guys anyways. So who really cares? Like it's all the same. And then the quarterbacks. So if Justin Fields plays, which it looks like he is, we all know he has the cheat code of getting rushing yards. So I don't hate him. He's probably like a top 20 quarterback. It depends what your situation is. Like I have one league where I waited super late to draft a quarterback, so I might have to pick up Fields. Like he's top 20, so it kind of depends who you have really. So if you want Fields advice, comment. I'm gonna have to see what situation you're in. And then Kirk Cousins, I'm fine with it. He's more like top 15. I'd probably honestly rather start Justin Fields just because Kirk Cousins is coming off an injury. So I wouldn't love starting Kirk Cousins because of that. But he's a solid starter. We know what Kirk Cousins is. That's all the fantasy stuff. Let's get into the bets for this game. I only have one bet. I have under the game total, under the point total of 43 points. This line was originally at 44 and a half. I bought 1.5 points to give us a little bit of wiggle room. The odds are minus 140. So I talked about it earlier. I think this game's going to be low scoring for a couple reasons. One, both teams have great defenses. We all know the Steelers and Mike Tomlin always have a great defense, but the Falcons are also going to have a good defense. They made a lot of moves. Justin Simmons in the secondary, Matthew Judon, plus other guys as well. But those are the two main guys. And we all know Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith are going to try to run the hell out of the ball. They try to slow the game down. So I just think this game's not going to have a lot of scoring, be really slow paced. I like the under for this game. So yeah, guys, that's it for Steelers versus Falcons. Our next game is Cardinals versus Bills. There isn't a lot of fantasy stuff to talk about here. There is a lot of studs that if you drafted them, you're starting them. You're starting both quarterbacks, Kyler and Josh Allen, no matter what. You're starting both running backs, James Conner, James Cook, no matter what. Both tight ends, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, no matter what. And then Marvin Harrison, no matter what. That's 7 guys in this game that if you drafted them, you're starting them no matter what. There are a few fringe guys, but I don't really love any of them. Let's start with the Bills receivers, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel. Shakir is my favorite out of the 3, but he is a wide receiver 3 at best in deep leagues, probably more of a flex. But the reason I like him the best is because he has rapport with Josh Allen. He's played with Allen for years, and he has shown flashes. He's a decent player. Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel are flexes at best in deep leagues. Curtis Samuel, we all know what he is. You know, like I don't really love him as a player. Keon Coleman, could he break out? Because he is a rookie, we don't know what he does. He's super athletic. Of course he can break out. But for people that have followed me for a while, I don't trust rookies until they show me and prove to me that they can play in the NFL. Obviously, Marvin Harrison, the same thing could be said about Marvin Harrison. And I was saying the same thing about Marvin Harrison during draft season. I didn't draft Marvin Harrison anywhere. But because you drafted Harrison so high, you have to start him. It's a little bit different than Keon Coleman. But yeah, I don't love any Bills receiver. Shakir is my favorite. Let's get into the other Cardinals receivers, Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. These guys are super deep league guys. Like, please do not start these guys. These guys are like number 3, number 4, number 5 on the depth chart. Think about it. Harrison and McBride are definitely getting more targets. James Conner might get more targets than them. So if you're desperate, I'm fine with it. Like, it is what it is, but don't start these guys if you don't have to. That's all the fantasy guys. Let's get into the bets. So I have 2 bets for this. 2 player props. We got James Cook over 16.5 receiving yards at minus 120. I think this line is way too low for James Cook. He's proven in years past that he is a good receiving back, good in open space. And now Josh Allen doesn't have a number 1 receiver. I think Cook gets a lot of work in the passing game. I think this line's way too low. And then we got Kyler Murray over 225 passing yards. I also think this line's too low. Think about this. Look at this. Kyler Murray, coming off injury last year, only played 8 games. In 5 of those 8 games, he went over this line of 225. He was injured last year, and he didn't even have Marvin Harrison. Now he has Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, a healthy James Conner. I think this line is way too low. That's it for Cardinals Bills. That was a pretty simple game. We banged through that one. A lot of studs that you're starting no matter what. Yeah, that's it, guys. It's pretty simple for that game. So our next game is Titans versus Bears. There is only one stud in my opinion. It's DJ Moore. If you drafted him, you're starting him no matter what. Okay, there is a lot of skill position players in this game that we need to talk about. I'm going to try to bang through this. Bear with me. So all the Titans skill position players I'm really worried about. We don't know if Will Levis can support an offense. We haven't seen it. Let's start with Calvin Ridley. So if you're in a 3 receiver league, you have to start him. He's a wide receiver 3 for me. So I get it. But there are some guys I would rather start over him. The reason I'm worried is not only because of Will Levis, but because Calvin Ridley is a turf receiver. I know this turf thing sounds silly, but historically, players that are used to playing on turf, that go play on grass, which the Bear Stadium is grass, those players don't perform as well because grass is a slower surface than turf. The players just aren't used to that slower surface. So the turf thing mixed with Levis has me worried about Ridley. All the guys I mentioned over George Pickens, Tank Dell, Christian Kirk, Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin, I would rather start over Ridley. I would even rather start Pickens and Deontay Johnson over Ridley. I just think all those guys will not give you a zero. They're going to get you volume. I worry this Titans offense might give us a stinker. Next, DeAndre Hopkins. I'll keep it short and sweet. Do not start DeAndre Hopkins. Not only is he a turf receiver like Ridley, he also is injured and over 30 years old. These are the type of guys I would start over Hopkins. Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, Brandon Cooks, Courtland Sutton. Those low-end guys. None of those guys are injured. DeAndre Hopkins is injured. Next, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, the running back for the Titans. I don't hate these guys. I get it, running back is scarce, so you probably have to start them. But there are some guys that you might have drafted that are on your bench that you could start over them. But they have the same problem as the receivers. They are turf running backs, and they are on an offense I'm worried about. Here's some guys that might be on your bench. Chase Brown, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Chuba Hubbard, Javonte Williams, and Brian Robinson. I would rather start all those guys. So Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and Devin Singletary are all starting running backs. So they're not splitting work. And then Chase Brown and Raheem Mostert, they are splitting work, but they don't have the turf problem, and they are in better offenses. So I like all of those guys better than the Titans running backs. But if you have to start them, I don't hate it. I understand. Next, let's move to the Bears skill position players. So let's start with DeAndre Swift. I actually like DeAndre Swift decently this week. He is a RB2 for me. He starts the year strong every single year, no matter what team he's on. He starts the year strong. He's going to be the pass catching back for the Bears. So he's a solid RB2. I don't mind him. Keenan Allen. My guy Keenan Allen. I'm a Chargers fan. I love Keenan Allen as a talent, but I'm worried for a couple reasons. One, he's older now. Two, he's not the number one guy anymore. I just kind of want to see what this offense looks like with Keenan Allen, what kind of volume he gets. And honestly, all the guys I mentioned over Calvin Ridley, I would even start Calvin Ridley over him. I'm just a little bit worried. Next, Rome Odunze, the rookie receiver for the Bears. The same thing I said about Keon Coleman for the Bills. I will not start a rookie until he proves to me that he can play in the NFL. I would start Keenan Allen over him, 100%. Last thing we have to talk about is just the quarterbacks. So Will Levis, do not start him unless you are in a super flex league. Caleb Williams, I don't mind him. I don't mind Caleb Williams. He's like a top 20 quarterback. Here's some guys I would start over him. I'd rather start Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Matt Stafford. All those guys have pretty good matchups. We've seen them do it before. But I don't mind Caleb Williams. Like, if you have to start him, I get it. He has amazing upside, amazing talent around him. So that's all the fantasy recap. Let's get into the bets. I only have one bet. DeAndre Swift over 1.5 receptions at minus 160. Like I mentioned earlier, Swift always comes out strong every year. He's going to be the pass catching back. And the Bears have come out and said screen passes are going to be part of their offense. So I think him getting 2 receptions is totally reasonable. That is the Titans versus Bears recap. Preview. You knew what I meant. All right, next we got Patriots versus Bengals. Pretty gross game. The only stud we have here is Jamar Chase. I know there's a whole controversy with his contract and everything, but if he plays, you're starting him no matter what, especially because T. Higgins is probably not playing. But let's get into the other guys. So let's start with the Patriots. They don't have a ton to talk about. Ramondre Stevenson. He is a solid RB2. He's going to get you enough volume, enough catches. Do I love him? Do I think he has upside? No. He's an RB2 though. You're starting him if you drafted him. Demario Douglas is probably my favorite Patriots receiver, but he is a deep league flex. He has Jacoby Brissett throwing him the ball. He might give you 4 or 5 catches, which is a decent floor, but only deep leagues. I know some people are high on the rookie receivers for the Patriots, but no. They have Brissett throwing him the ball, and they are rookies. Absolutely not. And then might as well just talk about Brissett himself. We all know you're not starting him. Let's get into the Bengals. So the only 2 guys I guess you probably drafted are both the running backs, Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Zach Moss is a low-end RB2. I just don't think he's that good of a talent. This is his 3rd team in like 5 years. He's an average running back. So I'd rather start people like Chuba Hubbard, Jerome Ford, Raheem Mostert. I would even start both Titans guys over him. I'm just not super high. Chase Brown, on the other hand, I would rather start over Zach Moss. I like Chase Brown a lot. Super explosive. Kind of reminds me of like a Devon A-Chain type of player. So I like Chase Brown as a low end RB2 as well, but I would rather start Chase Brown over Zach Moss. And I'd probably still, the guys I mentioned over Moss, I'd probably still start over Chase Brown. Like I'd start Chuba over Chase Brown, Ford over Chase Brown, and Mostert over Chase Brown. But I think Chase Brown's a low end RB2 and a flex. I like him as a talent, so I don't mind starting him this week. Um, I know everyone's talking about this receiver called Yoshivas for the Bengals. You spell his last name Losivas. He's supposed to be the next man up behind T. Higgins. I guess he's a flex if you really need a replacement. But all those guys I mentioned earlier, like Christian Kirk, Jordan Addison, all those guys, man, like you probably have one of those guys on your bench, right? Like you have to. You have to have one of those guys on your bench. So I guess if you don't, I don't know. I think I would rather still start like Khalil Shakir or something like that. Someone that we've seen actually play. If you're desperate, I guess. Like I get it. I get why people want that because T. Higgins is hurt. But I don't know. I'm always gonna pick guys that I've seen play. And now Burrow. Let's talk about Burrow, a guy that a lot of people plan on starting. So I still think he's top 20, even with the T. Higgins news, the Jamar Chase controversy. I still think he's top 20. But if you have players like Lawrence, Tua, Baker, Stafford, I'd rather start all of them, like I mentioned earlier. But I think I would start Caleb Williams over Burrow. Caleb Williams just has more skill talent around him, less question marks. I even think I would start Justin Fields just because of the rushing. So I'm a little low on Burrow this week just because of the question marks, but I get it. You might not have someone better than Burrow. I understand. I don't hate him. He's still a great player. And then I only have one bet for this game, and it's a little risky. I have Jamar Chase over 66.5 yards at minus 115. If Chase plays, 66.5 yards is super low for him. I get it. He might not want to play full snaps. He might throw a fit. He might not even play. I get it. But I'll take the chance that if Chase plays, him getting 67 yards is very likely. So there wasn't a lot to recap. Pretty ugly game. Not a lot of talent in this game. But yeah, that's the Patriots Bengals. Next game is Texans versus Colts. Let's start off with the studs. Both quarterbacks, Stroud, Richardson. You're starting them if you drafted them. If you drafted both running backs, Mixon, Taylor starts, and Nico Collin is a start. But all the other guys are really talented. They're probably starters for most teams. Let's start off with Diggs. In my opinion, Diggs should be up with the studs, but he was like a mid-round draft pick, so like some teams aren't like forced to start him. I think Diggs is going to be a number one receiver this year. If you followed me for a while, I said it during draft season. I told everyone to draft him. I think he's going to be the best receiver on this Texans team. Start him. 100% start him. Next, we'll go to Tank Dell. He's going to be a starter on most teams. He is a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for me. The only way I can see you not starting him is if you have players, like receivers that are number one on their team. Like, for example, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin. Players like that who are going to get most of the volume where Tank Dell isn't guaranteed volume. Also, another scenario I could see is if you went running back heavy and like in your flex spot, you have a running back like Mixon, Ken Walker, Rashad White, Dave Montgomery, running backs that went like mid to late rounds. If you have players like that are guaranteed volume, I would put them over Tank Dell. But most teams, Tank Dell is a starter. I like Tank Dell. To end the Texans, we have Dalton Schultz. He's a solid low-end tight end, like a Jake Ferguson type. I don't mind starting him. He's cool. Let's get to the Colts. So Michael Pittman. I know a lot of people put Pittman up in the studs list. I don't mind Pittman as a talent. I just don't like his situation. So for me, he's not a stud. I just don't trust Richardson as a thrower to get him the ball. And a lot of his work is like short area stuff, not a lot of stuff downfield, not a lot of touchdowns. He's a starter. He's a wide receiver 2, but I would start all the Texans guys over him. I would start Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, both of the Bucs receivers over him if you have that option, but he's a solid starter. And to end it off, Adonai Mitchell, the rookie receiver for the Colts. A lot of people are high on him as a prospect, but I'm going to keep saying it. I need to see a rookie prove to me that he can play in the league before I start him. So pretty simple, a lot of talent in the game. Let's get to the bets. So I got one player prop at minus 120. We got Anthony Richardson over 43.5 rushing yards. I said I couldn't trust Richardson as a thrower, but I trust him as a runner. Think about what Lamar did against the Chiefs, 100 rushing yards. I could see Richardson doing that easily, so I like him going over 43 rushing yards. And then I got the Texans money line. So all we need is the Texans to win the game at minus 165. I just like the odds. I like the Texans better than the Colts. Pretty easy bets. Pretty easy game to go over. That was Texans Colts. Pretty easy. Our next game is Jags versus Dolphins. So this one also is pretty simple. A lot of studs in this game. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, you're starting. Jalen Waddle, you're starting. Devon Achane, Travis Etienne, and Evan Ingram. Those 5 you are starting if you drafted them. But just like last game with the Texans and the Colts, there are solid skill position players on this team. Christian Kirk is a solid wide receiver 3. If you're in a 3-receiver league, I like him. If you're in a 2-receiver league, I would start players like Tank Dell, Chris Godwin over him. I would even start Jordan Addison over him. I just like Jordan Addison's setup this week against the Giants better. But I like Christian Kirk. Solid starter for most teams. Gabe Davis, he's a deep league flex. You can start him if you want boom or bust. We know what type of player he is. He'll give you 0 or he'll blow up. It depends what you want. Brian Thomas, rookie receiver for the Jags. People are high on him. He's a rookie. I don't have to say it. I need to see him prove it. We'll go to the Dolphins now. Raheem Mostert. I think people are sleeping on Raheem Mostert because everyone loves Devon Achane. I think Mostert is still going to get enough volume to at least be a solid flex, maybe even an RB2. But this week, if you want to be a little bit cautious, I do like him as a flex. I've mentioned him multiple times about players I would start him over. I don't have to bring it up again. And then the 2 quarterbacks. I think both of these quarterbacks, Tua and Lawrence, are top 20 quarterbacks. I have also talked about these guys earlier. I don't have to keep bringing up who I would start them over. But yeah, guys, let's get into the bets. So I have 2 bets now. Both of them involve the Jags. So I got the Jags plus 4. I bought 0.5 points. So it was originally at 3.5. I bought half a point to make it plus 4 to make it 130. 130 odds. The Dolphins defense is really hurt. They don't have Bradley Chubb. They lost Christian Wilkins free agency. And people forget, the Jags were a good team before Lawrence got hurt last year. I just think these teams are more evenly matched. I'll take the Jags with the points. And then I got the game total over 48 at minus 140. I bought 1.5 points here to give us some wiggle room. I think this game is going to be very high scoring. Both of these teams have skill weapons and mediocre defenses. I really like this over. But yeah, guys, that is Jags Dolphins. Next, we got Panthers versus Saints. Another gross game. Not a lot of talent. Only 2 studs are Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara. If you drafted both of those guys, you're starting them. Let's move on to the Panthers skill position after that. Deontay Johnson is a solid wide receiver 3. Safe floor. Give you like 5 or 6 catches at a minimum probably. I would start guys like Jordan Addison, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin, George Pickens, Christian Kirk. I think all those guys will also give you volume but have more upside. But Deontay is a solid wide receiver 3. Chuba Hubbard, man. I like him better than most people do. I told you guys all during draft season to draft him. I think he can be a running back 2 until Jonathan Brooks comes back. Here's why. I think he can kind of turn into Rachaad White. Rachaad White, his rookie year was not that good. His second year last year, pretty good, right? Top 15 back. Dave Canales was the Bucs offensive coordinator last year, and he helped turn Rachaad White into a good running back. The Panthers head coach, Dave Canales. I think he can help turn Chuba Hubbard into a good running back. I think Chuba Hubbard is going to catch a decent amount of passes, get a lot of work. And Chuba Hubbard is a decent talent. Not great, but pretty good. And then we're ending it with Adam Thielen. He's a deep league flex, probably give you 3-4 catches, If you need some points, cool. Then let's go to the Saints. Really only 2 guys left. Juwan Johnson. He's kind of like Pat Freiermuth. Desperation, deep league, late round tight end. Might get lucky, get a touchdown. He is what he is. Rashid Shaheed. Some people are high on him. I kind of view him as like Gabe Davis, so like a deeper league, boomer bust type of guy. But I could be wrong. But I don't really like him this week. And then the 2 quarterbacks. Don't start either one of them. We know what Derek Carr is at this point. He's not good. Don't start Bryce Young yet, but I have hope for him. I have hope he has a better year. But don't start him this week. And then we'll end with the bets. I have 2 bets. I got 1 player prop, which is Chuba Hubbard over 11.5 receiving yards at minus 120. Like I said, I think he's going to get catches, man. All we need is 12 receiving yards. That he can get that in 1 catch. I like the bet. And then I have Panthers plus 5.5 at minus 145. I bought half a point to bring it to 5.5. I just think the Panthers might win this game, and if they don't win it, at least lose by a field goal, which we win the bet if they lose by a field goal. I think the Panthers are way more evenly matched than people think. I think the Panthers are going to take a step up, and the Saints are going to take a step down. Pretty simple game. Panthers Saints. Yep. Next, we got Vikings versus Giants. Another gross game. Malik Neighbors is the only reason I want to watch this game. I want to see his rookie debut. But here's the studs. Justin Jefferson, you're starting him. Aaron Jones, you're starting him. And Malik Neighbors, although he's a rookie, he's the same thing as Marvin Harrison. You draft him high enough that you have to start him. Let's get into the other guys. Let's start with the Vikings. So I've talked about Jordan Addison a lot today. I like him as a solid high-end wide receiver 3. I think he's going to have a good week. Of course, like if you're in a 2-receiver league, you might have better receivers. But, if you're in a 3-receiver league, you're starting him every single week. I like him a lot this week. I really do. I like him a lot. Ty Chandler, he's a deep league flex. He might get a couple of carries. He might spell Aaron Jones. He's more of a handcuff to Aaron Jones than anything. Let's go to the Giants. Devin Singletary is a low-end RB2 slash flex. He's going to get volume, but not on a very good team. But if you're just looking for volume, you're struggling at running back, struggling at flex, you can definitely do worse. Wan'Dale Robinson is a deep league flex. I don't even really trust Malik Neighbors, but Malik Neighbors is talented. Wan'Dale is an okay player, but it's Daniel Jones. Come on now. And then we'll go to the quarterbacks. Don't start either one of them. Don't start Daniel Jones. Don't start Sam Darnold. Lastly, the bets. I only have one bet, and it's just going to be Malik Neighbors over 57.5 yards. I think, the odds are at minus 125. I think the Giants are going to force feed Malik Neighbors. They want to show off their new shiny toy. All we need is 60 yards. That's all we need. Both of these defenses are bad secondaries, so I think there's going to be a lot of throwing, which is why I like Addison, and I like Neighbors over the yards. Pretty simple game, pretty gross game. Yeah, guys. Next, we got Raiders Chargers. That is my team, the Chargers. Sadly, I am a Chargers fan, yes. We only got one stud in this game. Davante Adams is the only stud. If you drafted him, you are starting him. Other than that, we don't got a lot going. Let's start with the Raiders. I guess we'll finish off with the Raiders. I know a lot of people like Zamir White this year. I don't agree. I am super low on him. I don't like him as a talent. I get why people think he's going to be good. He's going to get a lot of volume, but I don't know, man. I just think you should lower your expectations. He's an RB2 for now, but I could really see him falling down. But you're starting him if you drafted him. Jacoby Myers, he's a low-end wide receiver 3. I like the talent, but I just got to see what this offense looks like before I trust him anything more than that. Brock Bowers, solid startable tight end. If you drafted him, you're starting him. Good prospect. Hopefully he lives up to the hype. Let's move on to the Chargers. So we don't got a lot here. I guess we'll start with Josh Palmer. Also, same thing as Jacoby Myers. I like the talent. I told all of you guys to draft him this year. I think he went way too low. I think he's going to lead the Chargers in targets, but we got to see what he looks like. So for now, deep league wide receiver 3. Chargers running backs, man. Who knows? Who freaking knows? There's so many of them. There's 3 of them. There's 4 of them. Do not start any of them if you have them. I would rather start both Titans running backs, both Bengals running backs. I would even rather start Ty Chandler over them. Like, do not start them. And then Ladd McConkey, the rookie receiver for the Chargers. You already know what I'm going to say. Don't start a rookie. And then the 2 quarterbacks. Minshew, don't start him. Please don't start him. And Justin Herbert, I hate to say this, but I wouldn't start him this week either, man. Elite talent, top 5 talent, but we got to see what this offense looks like first. So, pretty gross. Only Adams is really the only one. Let's get into the bets. I got one bet, and this was actually the first bet I placed. We got under the total of 41. Under the total of 41 at minus 140. I think this is going to be very low scoring. Very low scoring. Like, both of these coaches want to run the ball and play defense. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I also bought 1.5 points. I didn't mention. I bought 1.5 points to bring it down to this total. But yeah, guys, I like the under in this game a lot. Next, we got Broncos Seahawks. Another gross game, man. I feel like these late games have been pretty gross. Only 2 studs we got. DK Metcalf, Ken Walker. If you drafted them, you're starting them. Let's move on to the other guys. Let's start with the Broncos. Courtland Sutton. So for now, he's a deep league wide receiver 3. But I think he has potential to be more this year. I like him this year. I think he's going to lead the team in targets, get some volume. I kind of want to see how it goes first, though. So for right now, deep league wide receiver 3, Javonte Williams. I'm way higher on him than most people are. He is a solid RB2 every week for me. I like him a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of volume, a lot of catches, and I like the talent as well. I like him. Start him, 100%. That's it for the Broncos. Let's move on to the Seahawks. So, Zach Charbonnet, I kind of view him as a Ty Chandler, someone who will get some carries here and there, some volume here and there, but more of a handcuff in my eyes. So I wouldn't love to start him unless you're super desperate. Tyler Lockett, I love Tyler Lockett. He has won me a lot of fantasy leagues in the past, but I think this might be the start of the decline this year. So for now, deep league wide receiver 3, but he could definitely prove me wrong and do it again for one more year. And then JSN, I think he's also a wide receiver 3, but with a little more upside than Tyler Lockett. That's what I think. So if you want some upside in your lineup, totally cool with it. And then the quarterbacks. Geno Smith, I don't hate this year in general. Just this matchup, I don't know how much he's going to have to push the ball. So he's a top 20 quarterback, but I would rather start Tua, Lawrence. I would even start Caleb Williams over him. And then Bo Nix, rookie quarterback for the Broncos. I got to see him. I got to see what he does before I even think about starting him in fantasy. Let's end with our only bet of this game. It actually involves Bo Nix. I got Bo Nix over 197 passing yards at minus 120. I just think any line under 200 is way too low for the modern NFL. Anybody, even a backup quarterback, can go in and throw for 200 yards. So I always take those bets. So yeah, Bo Nix over 197 passing yards. So we got Cowboys-Browns next. I'm actually kind of interested in how this game goes. I think this is going to be a pretty good game for real life football, but let's talk about fantasy. So I think there's two studs here. CeeDee Lamb, obviously, and then Jake Ferguson. You drafted Jake Ferguson to start every single week. That's why you drafted him. So I think he's a stud. Let's start out with the other guys and start with the Browns. Amari Cooper, I think he is a solid wide receiver 2 every week. I think he was going too late in drafts. Last year, with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Cooper was elite. Start him every single week. Jerome Ford, I think he is a solid RB2 for me. No, I don't think he's going to have any blow-up games, but I think he's going to be solid RB2 every single week. Even a flex. You probably got him late, so you can even start him as a flex if you want. David Njoku, I thought about putting him in the studs, but he went kind of late, but he's solid. Start him if you have him. You know, tight end's gross. He's better than the gross tight ends. Let's go to the Cowboys now. Brandon Cooks, he's probably the number 2 receiver, but the number 3 target, though, because Ferguson's the number 2 target. So he's a deep league wide receiver 3 until he can prove us otherwise. And then the Cowboys running back situation. Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott. Don't start Zeke or Dowdle. Please don't. We have no idea what's going to go on with this backfield. I want to see what goes on first. If you're desperate, if you're absolutely desperate, I would probably start Dowdle over Zeke, but I'd rather start like Ty Chandler over him, Zach Charbonnet over them. Like, at least we kind of know what those guys' role is. We have no idea what's going on here. So I wouldn't start either one of those guys. And then the quarterbacks, they're pretty similar. Dak and Deshaun are both top 20 for me. In better matchups, I would like them more. I just don't like their matchups. So for both of these guys, I would rather start Tua and Lawrence over them 100%. So that's the fantasy part. I only got one bet here. It's a player prop again. I got Amari Cooper, man. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Amari Cooper over 56.5 yards at minus 115. Like I said, Cooper was elite with Watson last year. So that's why I'm taking it. I get the Cowboys are kind of a tough D, but I don't really care. I really don't care. I think Cooper can get past that defense 100%. So Cowboys Browns, pretty simple. We are on the last game before the Sunday night game. We got Commanders versus Bucks. So two studs are Mike Evans, Rachaad White. You're starting them every week. Let's hop into the Redskins skill players. Terry McLaurin is a solid wide receiver 3. I hope Jaden Daniels can unlock him and turn him into more than that. But for now, he's just a wide receiver 3. Brian Robinson is a low-end RB2. You know what you're getting with him. He's going to get all the running work. Hopefully he gets a touchdown. Not a lot of catches. He will never give you a 0, but he probably won't have a ton of blow-up weeks unless he has like over 100 yards rushing, which could happen with Jaden Daniels, you know. But for now, low-end RB2. Eckler is just a flex for now. I want to see how they use him. Maybe they can use him in some more explosive plays and be more than that. But for now, he's just a flex. And Zach Ertz is a desperate tight end. If you really need help and looking for a touchdown, cool. I guess he's not a bad option. We've seen him do it before. And then we know Jahan Dotson got traded, but we have no idea who the other receiver is. So I wouldn't try to guess. I would just wait and see and then pick that guy up if you want to. But for now, I wouldn't try to guess. Now the Bucks, Chris Godwin is a solid wide receiver 3, just like Terry McLaurin. You're starting him, 100% starting him. K. Dotton is also a desperate tight end, just like Zach Ertz. They're literally like the same player. And then the 2 quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels is top 15 just because of his rushing. Like, if you have him, you're probably starting him. If he's your backup, it kind of depends who you have. It depends who you have, but he has the rushing upside. Like, he could give you 10 points just off of rushing every single week. Baker Mayfield is top 20 just because of the matchup. The Redskins secondary is so bad, man. So I don't mind Baker as a streamer, or if you need another quarterback. Like, if you have Burrow, I would start Baker over Burrow 100%. And then bets. We only got one bet, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, talking about Jaden Daniels. I got him over 40.5 rushing yards at minus 110. It's the same logic I use with Anthony Richardson. These guys are going to run, man. They can get this in like 1 or 2 runs. I like this bet. All we got is Sunday night left. We are on the last game, Sunday night football, Rams versus Lions. We got tons of studs in this game. Kupp, Puka, Kyren, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, all these guys. If you drafted all these guys, you are starting them. So that doesn't leave us a lot left. So we'll start with the Rams. Demarcus Robinson is a deep league flex. He had some solid games last year, but he's okay, man. If you want to ride the hot train, I guess. But for me, I got to see him do it again this year. Blake Corum is just a handcuff for now. Just a handcuff for now. If you followed me for a while, I'm worried about Kyren. I think Corum kind of gets more work, but for now, we have no idea. We can't start Corum. We'll go to the Lions now. Jameson Williams. I know a lot of people were high on him during draft season, and he is a good prospect out of college, but I got to see him do it. So for me, right now, he is a deep league wide receiver 3 until he can be consistent. And now it's just the quarterbacks. So I think both of these quarterbacks are top 15. Top 15. Like, I would start both of these quarterbacks over Burrow. I would start both of these quarterbacks over Jaden Daniels. I would start both of these quarterbacks over Baker, over Caleb. Like, I would start them over basically everyone but like the elites. Like, I think this game is going to be super high scoring. Both of these quarterbacks have a lot of skill weapons. I like these quarterbacks a lot, which leads me to my bet. I have over the point total of 50.5. It's a pretty high point total. I think it goes over easily. So over 50.5 points at minus 145. The total was actually higher. I bought 1.5 points, but I just think this is going to be a bonanza, 100%. 100% bonanza, tons of scoring. Yeah, guys. So that is all of the game recaps. I still have some bets that I didn't mention, some parlays, and then still the underdog fantasy. Let's hop into those now. Just let me pull up the bets for 1 second. Let's hop into the parlays. So I got 4 parlays for you. They are all money line parlays. So for you guys that have been watching me for a while, I don't do parlays very often just because straight bets are the easiest way to profit and not lose as much money. Parlays is how people lose money, but I like to dabble in parlays. So money line here. All we need is the teams to win. We're going to start off with the Bengals Seahawks money line. All we need is the Bengals and Seahawks, which are heavy favorites to win the game. That combined puts us at minus 140. That's a great odds for 2 heavy favorites. So Bengals Seahawks money line minus 140. Lock it in. We got another Bengals Seahawks one for plus money. So this one's kind of the same. So we need the Bengals and Seahawks to win the game. But we also need the Bengals and Seahawks to also be leading at first half. So it's Bengals Seahawks first half money line and game money line combined plus 150. So we're getting plus money. So if you put down 10, you're winning over $10 profit. So easy money. Now we're going to go more into the long shot ones. So these ones I wouldn't put a ton of money on. Pretty good odds though. So this one we have a 4-team money line parlay. All of them are favorites. Bengals, Seahawks. 5 teams. I lied. Bengals, Seahawks, Bears, Chargers, and Bills. I'll repeat that one more time for the listeners only. Bengals, Seahawks, Bears, Chargers, Bills, money line. All we need is those 5 teams to win. Puts us at plus 437. Great odds. And yeah, I mean the Bengals, Seahawks, and Bills are very heavy favorites. The Bears, you already know earlier, I'm worried about the Titans. And then the Chargers, I'm a little bit of a homer, but I just think the Raiders just aren't good. I trust Harbaugh to win that game. So that's my reasoning behind the bets. And then we got one more underdog parlay, two teams. I got the Panthers winning, upsetting the Saints, and the Jags winning, upsetting the Dolphins at plus 589. I already talked about it. I just think the Panthers are going to be a better team than the Saints this year. And in the Jags, I think it just comes down the Dolphins having injuries to the defensive, like to their defense. So it's a little bit more of a long shot. So those are the four parlays. I wouldn't put as much money as you put on the straight bets. That's why I don't tell you guys what to bet, like how much to bet. Everyone has a different financial situation. I don't even put a lot of money on my bets, like $20 max usually. So I'm just here to profit, have some fun, watch the games. All we have left here is the underdog fantasy bets. Let's hop into that now. All right, let's end with the underdog fantasy parlays. If you have never used the underdog fantasy app, download it and use my code CE2244. The letter C, the letter E, 2244. I will put it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But if you download the app, use that code, and you're a first-time user, they will match your deposit up to $1,000. So whatever you put in, they will match it in free bets. Let's hop into it. So I like to do a lot of parlays on Sundays. It just makes it fun. It makes the games fun. I only put $5 down on each bet. I'm not putting a lot of money down. We got 12 parlays, so it's only $60 down. That's not that much money. I know it may be some money for a lot of people, but if you use my code, all you have to do is put $30 down, and you'll get $30 back. That's $60. So you can tail all of these. So we're going to start with a two-player. All it is Anthony Richardson over 42 rushing yards, Jaden Daniels over 39 rushing yards. I already explained why I like those bets. You get over 3 times your money back if you win that bet. Okay? Next, we got Adonai Mitchell, the rookie receiver for the Colts, over 2.5 catches. I just think Richardson's going to pepper him with targets we saw during the preseason. We got Malik Neighbors over 61 yards. I already explained why I like that. And I got Marvin Harrison over 59.5 yards. So it's a whole rookie parlay. I think Harrison's going to get a lot of targets. I think they're going to try to feed him, just like the Giants are going to try to feed Neighbors. If you win that bet, you get over 5 times your money back. Okay? Next, we got a quarterback passing yards one. If you win this, you get over 6 times your money. All we need is Kyler Murray over 227 yards. We already talked about why we like that one earlier. We got Baker Mayfield over 246 yards. He's playing the Commanders, who are the worst secondary in football. And then we got Trevor Lawrence over 252 yards. I already talked about why I think that game is going to be high scoring, which means Trevor Lawrence is going to throw a lot, which is why I like that. Next one, we got, what is it? We got three running backs receiving yards. If you hit this, over 6 times your money. We got DeAndre Swift over 10.5 receiving yards. Already talked about why we like that. Chuba Hubbard over 11.5 receiving yards. Already talked about why we like that. And James Cook over 16.5 receiving yards. Already talked about why we like that. All 3 of those hit. We hit it on the straight bets and this parlay 6 times your money. Next, we got rushing yards. 3 running back rushing yards. If you hit this, over 6 times your money as well. James Conner over 53.5 yards. He's the bell cow. 53 yards is pretty low for him. Travis Etienne over 58.5. Same thing. He's a bell cow, and I think that game's going to be high scoring. A lot of offense. And then Mostert in that same game over 44.5. I already explained it. I think people are underestimating how much work he's going to get. And he's explosive just like A-Chain. He can get 44 yards in one play. Next, we got quarterback over passing yards for over 6 times your money. We got Bo Nix over 197 yards. I already talked about why I like that. We got Bryce Young over 202 yards. I also think this is just too low for a starting quarterback nowadays. 202 is too low. And then we got Sam Darnold over 227 yards. I think he's going to sling it. I think Kevin O'Connell's going to let him sling it. And 227 is not a lot, especially against a bad Giants defense. All right, now we're starting to get into the higher end ones, the spicy ones. These ones are a little bit more long shot. But like I said, I'm still only putting $5 down. This one is a 4-player receiving yard one. If you hit this, you get over 10 times your money. We got Chris Godwin over 58.5 yards. Like I said with Baker, it's a good matchup against a terrible secondary. We got Jordan Addison over 45.5 yards. I've already talked about how I like Addison this week. We got Stephon Diggs over 57.5 yards. If Diggs does what I think he's going to do this year and is still elite route running, 57 is nothing for him. And then we got Jacoby Myers over 39.5 yards. I know how I talked about I'm kind of scared about Jacoby Myers, but 39 yards is pretty low. I think that's a pretty low line for him. The Raiders are going to have to throw somewhat, but it's a little bit of a long shot, but 10 times your money for only $5 down is worth the bet. All right, we got, what is this? We got 4 receivers over the catches for over almost 7 times your money. Okay? We got Devontae Adams over 5.5 catches. He can get 6 catches easily. Come on now. We got Deontay Johnson over 4.5 catches. I think 5 catches is probably his floor. We got Cortland Sutton over 3.5 catches. All he needs is 4 catches, man. And that goes hand in hand with our Bo Nix over passing yards. And then we got Khalil Shakir over 3.5 catches. I think he's going to be Josh Allen's number 1 target. Now we got the real spicy ones. We got some anytime touchdown scores. If we hit this, it's a 4 receiver touchdown prop. 25 times our money. So if you put down 5, we're winning over $100. All we need is Justin Jefferson to score a touchdown, Jalen Waddle to score a touchdown, Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown, and Tank Dell to score a touchdown. So, and this can be rushing or receiving. So even a gadget play works. But Dell, Kupp, Waddle, Jefferson, if they all score for a touchdown, all 4 score a touchdown, over 25 times our money. Next, we're going to go to a running back. 4 running backs, touchdown, 15 times our money. James Conner, touchdown. Joe Mixon, touchdown. Mostert, touchdown. And ETN, touchdown. Okay? Next, we're going to do a quarterback rushing touchdown prop for almost 7 times our money. All we need is Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson, which goes hand in hand with our rushing yards with them. And then Josh Allen. If all 3 of those quarterbacks score a rushing touchdown, almost 7 times our money. And then last, we got 3 quarterbacks over the passing yards for almost 9 times our money. We got Derek Carr over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Not a huge fan of Derek Carr, like I said earlier, but the Panthers defense really isn't that good. Even though I think the Panthers win that game, I still think the Panthers give up some points. We got Kyler Murray over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I like him this year. I like Kyler Murray a lot this year, man. He has tons of weapons. It goes hand in hand with our passing yards for him. And then Sam Darnold over 1.5 passing touchdowns, which, like I said earlier, I think he's going to torch this Giants defense and throw a lot. So all we need is these 3 quarterbacks to throw 2 touchdown passes, almost 9 times our money. Those are the underdog fantasy bets. All we got to do is hit like half of these, and we're going to profit by tons, literally tons. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm so sorry this is a longer show, but there's a lot of games to go over. I'm finishing recording right now at 5 a.m. So I got like 3 hours to edit and everything to put it up because I want this to be up by 8 a.m. this morning so you guys have time to watch it. Look at the bets. Look at the fantasy advice. Thanks for watching, guys. I love y'all so much.